Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant code calculator that lets you get as many codes as you want for free, to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, and my guest prints with Mixum, so that's very, very cool. I'm sure we're going to talk about how good they are and why you should choose them as a printer. And a bunch of other people who have been on the show also use Mixum. And right now they offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now they're running a promotion where listeners of my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tip of the current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. So that is Mixam.com. Type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on your first order. Every percentage point counts when you're funding a Kickstarter, everybody. So, without further ado, I have with me returning guest, comic creator and manga creator, Coffee Allen. So welcome back to the show.
Hi, I'm a Mixam user as well.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited in which that I haven't printed a book yet. Hopefully, I don't know if I'm ever going to print a comic at this point. Obviously that's probably maybe March 2022, maybe even June, because I just got other things going on. But you right now have a Kickstarter going on, and you have about 7 days left on the last book of Legends of the Erased, Book 3. So before we really dive into Book 3, what is the basic premise of your comic / manga for those who haven't heard about it and are seeing this for the first time and kind of want the quick catch-up?
Yeah, so Legend of the Erased is a psychological dark fantasy about a creator, painter, like she creates characters and stuff. She gets pulled into a nightmare realm of the world she has created, and she has to kind of deal with stuff she did wrong in her real life through her characters. Because I guess we as creators, we tend to put our personal issues into our characters. Serene basically did the same thing, and now she has to deal with those through her characters.
Yeah, lots going on in your story, to say the least. Obviously, Serene has some issues in her family. Her parents are fighting. Things aren't exactly working out. And then, she's scared to also use black inks and sort of throw dark, things into her story. And then out of nowhere, she gets sucked into this world. And so what was the inspiration and even really building out this, before we really dive a little bit into that world for this story? Because it is super interesting because you've seen it and I've seen it where a person gets sucked into an RPG type world in an anime, but it's all like pleasant and rainbows and it's kind of very, bright. And this is very much the opposite of that.
Yeah, so I guess the main thing that kind of inspired it is I really did enjoy stories like where the character gets pulled into a fantasy world, but I also liked the concept of characters getting pulled into dreams and stuff. Of course, I grew up with night terror syndrome, so I never could distinguish real life from dreams. So I guess I kind of wanted to play with that concept of this dream world. And for the longest time, my story was just, character gets pulled to a fantasy world. But in the final rewrite, it was just like, what, let's go full-fledged, let's make this whole thing a dream. So essentially, the character is in comatose, fighting for her life in this world. But it's all a nightmare.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff. See, the reason why I like this, and obviously I've read the first book, and I'm not caught up on the second book as of right now, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and it's very dark. And what was that like? Because I like dark, and I like, for lack of a better word, fucked up shit happening. I'm one of those people that thoroughly enjoys really exploring the psychological side of things and also having to deal with her choices and what she's been through. And then, she winds up sort of meeting allies and other characters, some who want to help her, some who want to play her to some degree, and then it's all the interaction. And then on top of that, these characters, some of them are trying to mess up the world she's in her nightmare and her dreams world, and others want to help her. And what was this like really building all this out? Because that's really where book one sort of starts getting into, and then book two, I would imagine, even book three, we're really getting to that pinnacle part at this point of the story.
Yeah, so I always really enjoyed the darker stories. Like, when I was a kid, I hated all the I hated SpongeBob. I hated all the the goofy stuff, and I was just like, I want something with substance. So I wanted to create something with a lot of substance. And I've always enjoyed really psychological stuff that makes you think, like Little Nightmares, Undertale. Those are the stories that really impacted me, and I wanted to put that energy into something else. So I definitely wanted a more psychological thing, or something where your characters aren't safe, because that's when you get more invested. Like, are they going to be okay?
Yeah, let's even talk about that, because obviously one of the things that I started out as a fan of anime and watching a lot of anime, and I found I gravitated towards it because when Toonami was on, I found those shows had a lot more substance to them. There was real consequences. And then obviously I got into graphic novels, and my first book that I picked up was the Teen Titans under Jeff Johns' run, which has serious consequences for the Teen Titans. And one of the things that I feel in comics right now that is lacking is that there's a sense that everything's going to be okay. And not to bash any comic creator, I think Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on Batman was phenomenal, but I also knew throughout the entire thing that relatively Batman was going to be okay, versus the idea that, when I read other books, like I'm a huge David Booher fan, and I love Kanto, and I don't know if Kanto's going to be okay in that story. I don't know what's going to happen, and I feel like there's been a real shift now where and with indie books, it's the idea that you could kill off a character in panel 3, and it could be the title character of your book, and you can do that. So I'm really curious how you feel about that, because I feel like the big two, and even with Image, they don't want to bring substance into the stories anymore. And I feel like there's something missing in storytelling.
Well, this has always been my issue with comics. If in this specific ride of Batman you don't like it, just go to the next Batman. There's none of that with manga. There's one story of Naruto. There's one story of Sailor Moon. And with indie comics, there's one. So if a character dies in one of those, that's it. There's no rewrite of that character. And it makes it more serious, and it brings out more emotion from the readers. Because if your reader is, reading a story and you kill off a main character, oh, well, I'll just go to the next write of it, and that character will be fine.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of it, but I also feel that at this stage, as well, with companies like DC and Marvel, and even parts of Image,
they should know better.
What?
They should know better by this point.
I think that's part of it. I also think it's the idea that there's so much money involved that when you become into a position where I go to AEW versus WWE. WWE is a big corporate machine that has a lot of red tape. AEW is a brand new company, so they don't have as much bureaucracy. And when companies don't have as much bureaucracy, they can try crazy ideas. And they could do things that normally wouldn't exist. I feel that that's what's going on with indie, is that the cost to experiment with indie is so much cheaper than it is to experiment by, doing something in DC Comics that could make, DC Comics $1 billion, but they could also lose $1 billion. Versus if an indie content creator produces issue 1 and then issue 2 flops, and it flops 10 times on Kickstarter, that cost isn't as high as it would be for a well-established company. And that, but at the same time, I'm also saying, look, at this stage, I think the reader is ready for Batman to start actually speaking how people speak in society at the same time. I think it's very interesting because I feel indie comics are more in touch with how what's going on with society and how people even just have dialogue. And that's why I'm now getting more attracted to indie comics and also companies like Titan and companies like Dynamite and companies like Dark Horse, more so than companies like DC and Marvel. And I'm obviously a huge Zenescope fan. So I find it very interesting when you wanted to do something that's so more substance, because that's clearly lacking in comics in a lot of ways.
Because they want to play safe. There's so much money involved with DC and Marvel and even Disney that they want to play safe. They want to keep to their formula that they know sells and they know their stuff is gonna sell, whether they, make a flop or not. With indie creators, we don't have that security. With us, it's all or nothing. We put everything we have into these books. All of our money, all of our time, our blood, sweat, and tears, but DC doesn't have to do that because they have money. But we put everything into our creations in the hope that our creations give back to us.
Yeah, and it also is very complicated. Being an indie content creator, I mean, the statistic is that 90% of you will not recoup your money back that you put into it.
Yeah.
And that's within, I think, the first year, and then within 5 years, it goes even further down. And that's not exclusive to indie content. That's collectively over businesses. And so it's very, very brutal in that regard as well. Versus DC, AT&T is almost a $200 billion company. I mean, if they lose $300,000 on a book, it's still a lot of money, but it's a drop in like a bucket for them versus,
if we lose $3 billion, we're $3 billion underground.
Yeah. So some of us are $3 billion underground. I would like to think that I will be buying a basketball team, a baseball team, or some other team when I make my first billion. But I would love to buy the Jets just to piss off Gary V. I think it'd be the funniest troll in the world, to troll Gary V. But that's just me. I take great pleasure in being a troll, because he's a huge Jets fan, and I just think it'd be hilarious if I bought it before he did. Because that's one of his goals in life.
I feel like the entirety of my first billion would be me just supporting little indie creators, and then me waking up one day being like, "Where'd my money go?" While everyone else is like all having like siestas with my money.
And then you'd have to go back to the Squid Game.
It's fine.
And so even go further into this, because obviously book 3. So in book 1 we sort of get into it, and then Seren's having allies, and she's got some very interesting friends, to say the least. I think Abaddon, or I'm sure you're going to correct me on that name.
Abaddon.
It sounds like a bandit.
Yeah, pretty much. It's that without the first N.
I'm not even going to try.
Gotcha.
I know when I've lost, and I'm happy to take the L on this one.
That's fine. But with book 3, so I'm planning on it being like a 15-20 book series, but I didn't want to do a Kickstarter for every single book. I kind of wanted to be done with Kickstarter at book 2, but after I had a bit
my approach.
I took a bit of a struggle with.
So let's talk about that, because this is super interesting, because obviously book 1 and 2 were done on Kickstarter, for those who don't know, just to catch everybody up. And then you took some time off. Because let's be realistic, everybody's got shit going on. COVID did a lot of damage to a lot of people's psyche. 2020 collectively. I personally came into the entire live stream game, but I know a lot of people just took time off because obviously not seeing people, whether people want to admit it or not, we are social animals, and not being able to see somebody or go out with your friends or go to a movie, whether people have self-analyzed or not. It changes people. And then what was it like for you now to say, hey, I have a 20-book series planned, and do I now want to come back to Kickstarter? Do I want to go on to Indiegogo? Do I want to leave crowdfunding behind? Because this is a whole big issue that's very complicated. And I'm actually very curious about this because, as everybody knows, and if you saw what we were doing earlier this week, I'm trying to get on Kickstarter, but that's not my plan either. So I'm super curious on what that internal debate was like, and even what's going on even now with you in that discussion and figuring out the next, I guess, 10 moves for this series.
Yeah, so with book 2, because I had released book 2, I instantly went into production for book 3. I had at least 2 conventions every month planned for 2020. So obviously if I had enough books, it could have funded itself. I was ready to go full time into this whole writing thing. But then with 2020, I literally had to move 13 times that year. And that wasn't even enough time to set up a desk to write at. So I just had to put writing on the back burner just for a little bit, and it drove me absolutely nuts because it's just I want to write in my book. But I couldn't because I was constantly moving, trying to find a way to basically survive for the entire year. And so with book 3, I was thinking, book 2 was going to be my last one, but I'm like, you know what? Let's do this again, but let's do this and let people know this is the last one. So if you want any of the goodies, any of the I'm doing custom mugs and custom t-shirts for people. And there's one reward I have. It's my $300 reward, where if you back the $300, you get a whole cover dedicated to you. Because with Mixam, the minimum order quantity is 50 books, and that's around $250. That's including shipping. So for $300, you get a whole 25 books dedicated to you.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about rewards because I think rewards are super interesting. I have a very cool reward that I want to do that I think is going to be a lot of fun. And I don't know who I'm going to print if I ever get my Kickstarter off the ground, and I'm even debating that right now as well. On the direction I want to go. But what was this like, really? Because obviously, I think one of the debates that's going on with Kickstarter right now is that the whole point, it says it in its name, it's supposed to kickstart your project. Mm-hmm. So the way I view Kickstarter, and maybe I'm the odd person out here and the odd man out, it's the idea that I always thought Kickstarter was saying, okay, you have an idea to do issue 1 of a comic or do a graphic novel, and that you want to do 10 of them. Well, you're going to get seed money and support, and some people are going to say, hey, I want this, and then you give me the issue, I give you money, and we're all happy. And then at a certain point, you get off of it because you become self-sufficient. That was my understanding and the theory behind Kickstarter. Now, I could be completely wrong here on that. But what seems to have happened is that it's now become almost like an order form, or it's become that nobody can become self-sufficient without Kickstarter. That's why everybody does entire series on it, which raises the question that you might be making money on your Kickstarter, but you're not self-sufficient. But this isn't a business at that point. This is just a project that's self-funding itself every time you throw it up on Kickstarter. And so I'm very curious because you have the mindset that you're saying, hey, I want to make this into a business, and I want to make it so that I am doing this full time. Or, maybe, you work part time at a job and then you're doing this, you have 20 hours at one job and then you're doing this the other 20 hours until obviously this becomes 25 hours and then you eliminate your part-time job. So,
oh yeah. The entire goal was for it to be self-sufficient from the very beginning when I was, a wee child trying to scribble on some crayons. That was the whole idea. I wanted to have a life of making comics. I always told myself if I failed at making comics, I would work as a barista at Starbucks. Well, unfortunately, I'm 25 and have to have money anyway, so I'm a barista at Starbucks.
It's not a bad job. If you get stock options, whew.
I get free coffee every week. And for me, that's a big expense. I mean, it's literally in my name. But yeah, the
I
whole
would love
goal.
to work at Starbucks and have stock options. I have Starbucks stock and I've done phenomenal in it.
I mean,
That's somebody's
yeah.
favorite word that I use, and he's not watching, so he can't make fun of me.
But yeah, the whole goal with Legend of the Erased is for me to put my entire life into this so that it can give it my life back to me through the form of me being able to enjoy creating, but still be able to, have a life, have a house, have a, you know, source of income. But with, 2020, I was supposed to have a publisher in 2020. COVID shut them down because their entire source of income was conventions. But nearly 2 years without conventions, they're not existent anymore.
I hate to be, bearer of bad news. Cons are also going to be very complicated and going into 2022. It's
Hmm.
COVID for those who, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it is far from over. It is still very complicated. And in the US, it's one thing. In Canada, it's another. In
Hmm.
Israel, it's a third thing. In the UK, it's a fourth thing. And India, we don't talk about because India is a mess. And so
Yeah.
it's a very complicated entity. And it
I
is,
live in the South where they sweep it under the rug and pretend it's not there.
but it's not what I'm trying to highlight the problem is that it's not a United
Yeah.
States problem. It is a global problem.
Hmm.
And what's going to affect things going forth is definitely what happens, in Israel and other places. It is so interesting. But sorry for interrupting. Continue.
Yeah, it's definitely a watch and see what happens kind of situation, which I did take the time to make sure I had an up and running website, one that works really well for those that can't attend cons for health reasons, or for those who don't want to because you don't want people spitting all over you. I sure don't want that either.
Look at me and what I'm doing is that I may never ever go back to a con. I had two miserable experiences at
Hmm.
conventions. One of them was I was trying to negotiate a guest deal, and that thing just got very very heated. I felt very disrespected by a
Hmm.
con with a con that I've given a lot to, and that I'm like, guys, I've been doing free lectures at your con for years, for the last 10 years, and you just denied me a panel. Like, you guys should know my name at this point. You should recognize
Hmm.
Pop Anime Comics, who's been here for the last 8 years. And then I had a con experience that, I wasn't even on the, I guess, platform, and I wasn't in the brochure. I wasn't even on the website. And I spent like 400, $500 to go to that con too. And I just felt, and then what wound up happening is that Mixon came in and became a sponsor. I'm doing live reads and I'm making real money now doing this. And this is the first time I'm making money. So why would I ever want to go back to an area where I was losing money? At a
Yeah.
certain point, I enjoy going to cons. And don't get me wrong, I think cons are a lot of fun and they're enjoyable. But in my circumstance, you know, making money or having sort of a fun, 36 hours, but making real money and starting to make real money. And that's going to get further refined. I mean, to me, it's crystal clear in my world at this point where I sit. And that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel about it, but, and I'm actually very curious because I'm part of the great digitalization pivot where I am definitely moving digital a lot
Hmm.
faster. And I think that's sort of the future in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't want to move digital, which if that's where things go, so be it.
So I'm going to clarify when I say digital, I don't mean getting rid of physical comics. I mean having a much larger online presence. So, for instance, is that I'll sell comic books through a website. I'll
Hmm.
be more active on social media. I'll do a lot more live streams and a lot more live interviews. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know when I'm going to pick up season three, whether I'm going to start on January 4th or February 4th, but I want to kick it up. And right now, the max I can do is four, but I want to kick it up to five or six. And I want to increase and keep increasing until I'm doing one of these 6 days a week or 7 or eight
Yeah.
days. And so that's what I mean by digital. And then I want to sell directly to my customers. And I'm going to be building a business that's meant to do that. It really starting in February and March, where I am definitely, that's what I mean by digital. I don't mean just digital comics. I mean that, so if you have your store and that you were able to just say, it's dropping in for the next 2 weeks, you can only get book 3 in this copy, for X price, and then it's a sense of urgency, obviously that's what I mean by digitalization. Pivot versus going to a con and selling to me in person.
Yeah. Of course, what I wanted to do, because the favorite books I've ever read, I usually found them through something like YouTube. So I thought, a lot of when I had downtime during 2020, I went to YouTube for entertainment. So one thing I really wanted to do is give some of that back. I just need to be in an environment where I can, reasonably record and have enough time and enough energy. Because if I come home covered in mocha sauce, that's not exactly the best look for YouTube. Of course, I'm also stuck trying to figure out what kind of content I want to do. So it's figuring all that out. But yeah, like having a larger online presence, like that's completely fine. Except for this week. I'm in Facebook jail. So, thanks Zuckerberg.
I'm in Facebook hell, but that's different. So I am legitimately having what is known as a hell week, where I am in Kickstarter jail. So we're right next to each other. It's just
I'm in Facebook jail.
Get out, and we got to throw some kites down underneath their cell.
Yeah, apparently Zuckerberg thought I was posting too many links and that I was promoting scams for my Kickstarter. So, thanks Zuckerberg. I appreciate the support.
It's very interesting because I've had 2 StreamYard things get taken down mid-interview this week. And I think clearly Facebook is cracking down on Kickstarter links. And so the way I got around that is I put it into my Hootsuite and I use an OLW link now. And that's why it looks funny, everybody who's watching this. But you know what it is? Facebook's not going to pick it up. Because so far, we haven't been taken down in my Facebook group and my Facebook page. So far, so good. But it's very interesting. And I'm curious how you think about that, because I know certain groups don't like Kickstarter links. And I know Facebook doesn't like that either right now. And it's very, very interesting. And I don't know the story behind that. I just know that there's something going on, and I wasn't informed about it. So
I think Zuckerberg's just mad he's not getting money from it.
That could be
quite simply. But no, it's very frustrating because with the first 2 books, most of my audience came from Facebook. Like, I was active in a lot of groups, I was active in a lot of pages, and most of my fans and my followers came from Facebook. But now Facebook's doing this whole shadow ban thing to where if you post a link to a Kickstarter or any kind of promotion, no one sees it. Even with like,
gonna love me in February. This is the exact problem I'm going to solve. And then I am going to be getting so many awards for what I'm going to do in February, and that people are going to beg me to be a part of it. And I can't wait.
Hey, you could promote yourself as a marketer and get people to pay you to market their stuff so that they don't get put in Facebook jail.
I'm gonna re-envision the entire concept, and I'm not gonna give it away for free, because the second I do, everybody's gonna copy it and everybody's gonna be like, "That's brilliant." So it's just,
even Facebook is doing that, because Facebook is really bugging down on TikTok, because TikTok's algorithm is like the best, and Facebook's literally trying to buy out their algorithm. Because let's face it, Facebook's algorithm is terrible. Zuckerberg hates everybody. But it's fine, we hate him too.
So it's very interesting in that regard, and even just the promotional side. This is so interesting about all of this. And
it's hard to go digital when the digital world is against you. That's all I'm saying.
I don't see that. That's the thing, is that like I've come to the conclusion that it's weird in my world. Like, So I don't know how many people know this, but obviously I'm now starting to post my content on Rumble. Oh, there's a few reasons why. You could say, oh, Rumble is obviously leans right. And that is true. But Rumble, you could actually vote on videos. You can actually, their algorithm is definitely, I think, a lot more user friendly than YouTube. They're not as big, but I still have my content up on YouTube. I just recycle my content onto Rumble for the whole purpose where why wouldn't I want to be everywhere? And then this is eventually going to get into a podcast format. And then I want to just pop my content wherever it's the
Okay.
hottest. So for
Is it
me,
kind of like Vimeo?
yeah, but you
Okay.
could actually vote up or down, and then a video gets rumbles. And then at the end of every day or every week, depending on how many rumbles you get, it's almost like a raffle ticket. And then like those videos beyond just monetization could win like video of the day or something like that, and the creators can get paid. Now, I personally don't care about any of that, but I just know that there's a bunch of people on Rumble who are not on YouTube, or they might not see it on YouTube. And like I had a video that got like 60 rumbles out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. That must mean that maybe it's getting a few more views than it normally would, and then also gives me an opportunity to promote my content elsewhere. Like I've
Yeah.
had videos that have done horrible on Facebook, and then I push them out. They got like 100 plays, but on YouTube they have an engagement of 25 minutes, and they have over 500 plays at this point. So it's a very interesting world living in the digital, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but
Hmm.
clearly it's so interesting. But you're not the only one who's having this problem with Kickstarter and Facebook, and I don't really know what it is because at least with my podcast, all I do is I post this stuff into a bunch of groups, and
Hmm.
then naturally it catches a little bit of fire, but it's so complicated right now.
Yeah, it's complicated, and like, even if you post your stuff on YouTube, like sometimes the algorithm is just like, no one's gonna want to watch this, so we're just gonna not promote it, kind of thing. Um, but of course, the thing I enjoy the most with comics, the reason why I've chosen to do more of the con route, is I just enjoy people. I enjoy interacting with people. I enjoy like asking them. Like I've had a lot of experience because my book deals a lot with like PTSD and a lot of like mental issues. So people will come up and talk, like, start talking to me about how they relate to these characters, and that's the stuff that I love the most about what I do, is getting to meet people and hear their stories. But you don't get a lot of that on the digital world because they might leave a like and walk away. And I guess that's their right to do so, but there's no people when you're sitting at a computer screen.
Yeah, that's true to some degree. I mean, it depends where you're at, because I've had obviously discussions with people and back
Hmm.
and forth and real philosophical discussions, both publicly and privately. But it's also
Yeah.
very, very rare because when you're speaking to somebody in a digital way, obviously people don't necessarily open up so quickly. And even I mean, because you've been at cons, I've been at cons. I have a panel where we're going to talk about the women of Gundam, and after the panel, there's nobody behind us, so we just stayed in the room because and me and about five people were having this intricate and very intimate discussion that wasn't politically correct by any stretch of the imagination, but it was an exchange of ideas,
Hmm.
and everybody was speaking freely. It was a very cool thing.
Could
And
you imagine having that conversation in like a Facebook group where Zuckerberg's just like, "What are they saying about me?"
so I haven't had that conversation in a Facebook group, but I've had conversations like that in a Zoom group with about 10 other people. And it was a very
Hmm.
interesting discussion because it was a part of a anime philosophy group.
Hmm.
But again, that also was a very intimate setting. And I didn't know
Hmm.
any of the people in that group. So obviously I was treading lightly. But people
Yeah.
were speaking very freely, and we were speaking about an anime, and we were talking about death, and it was fascinating, fascinating discussion. Um,
Yeah. Meanwhile, if you type in like the wrong keyword on most of the social medias, like I did, instantly banned.
Yes, yes. I mean, I could tell you that there's an R word that YouTube does not like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on YouTube right now, so I'm not going to refer to it. You could refer to the act of it, but they don't like that word. And your video will you won't get demonetized per se. You won't get attacked, but you will definitely changing it, the algorithmized, for lack of a better
Mm-hmm.
word. It's very fascinating what's going on with this. And then when you are dealing with complicated issues in comics, and your book obviously deals with a lot of psychological things, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
questions. Obviously, book three is a huge ethical questions going on with book three, where one of the characters proposes to another character a very interesting concept. In book three, all of a sudden, Facebook might not like that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very, very interesting because not to say that other books are not adult, but if you're doing a superhero book, chances of a real ethical question and a real philosophical and something that's actually very thought provoking coming up is not going to be the same. So what is that even like for you to write that and also know that certain algorithms may or may not pick it up?
The algorithms just don't like me. The algorithms are just out, so I'm just doing what I do, and I'm aware that my book is a very niche audience. People that want to, have a lot more substance. Because there's a lot of comic readers, a lot of anime watchers that want to just sit down, have a good time, and not have to think. Anime and comics are their safe place, and they just want to go and be safe. This book is for the people who want to think or want to have some kind of catharsis from the struggles that they're facing and being like, hey, I'm not the only one who feels this way. And so I'm aware that it's a very niche thing, but the thing is, the people who would be attracted to this content are really attracted to this content. This whole overlying concept of, I guess death, and what would you do if you were just like directly faced with it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's super interesting, and also just to bring it back slightly to marketing as well, because obviously your book, and even when you're dealing with niche markets, it's the idea that you don't need a lot of fans per se, because if you had 1,000 fans
Mm-hmm.
and you were pumping out a book every 3 months, essentially, you wouldn't have to worry too much, and you had prints and you had T-shirts, and that you were up to the stage in merchandising, or you were able to pump out a chapter every 2 weeks. You know, for
Yeah.
and they were paying $2 a chapter. You had 1,000 fans, you would be able to make a living. There's a
Yeah.
saying where there's only two ways how to run business: have either a niche, super niche market that nobody can compete in with you, or sell a wide range of product. So you either
Mm-hmm.
have to sell Coca-Cola for $1 or make it for 10 cents, sell for $1 and sell it to everybody, or you have to go say, hey, look, I'm going to make the best X product and I'm going to do it better than everybody else and that nobody can compete, and I'm going to charge $50, but the people who want are going to pay that money.
Yeah. I debated a lot with, because I noticed at the last few cons, of course, I was majorly underprepared for the last like five I've done. Like I've gone with like maybe 50 books. Um, but I've debated on widening my product, like just having a lot more stuff. But overall, I feel like that would be bad for what I do. I need to just focus on what I have and make more stuff
Oh, this is
that
so
would promote that.
to talk about that, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously right now I in my business, so obviously my comic book investing business, my primary deal is Zenescope books. I have some DC variants. Obviously I've picked up some Star Wars books because those are going to be hot sooner or later, rather sooner or later. And then I tend to deal with Bad Girl a lot because that's what I deal with, but now I'm getting into a point of diversification. But I don't want to deal with anything that's, the most oldest book I want to deal with is like 15 years. I don't want to deal with any Silver Age or any Golden Age book. I just don't think the money's there. I think it's actually a very competitive field, and I think it's very, very complicated. And I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who buy and flip them, and some of them are worth real money, but you're also deploying a lot of money, and I think the margins are much higher. But I've also niched down in certain regards because I understand that if I don't, and I'm just shotgunning it, it's not going to be helpful to me. But at the same
Yeah.
time, there is things where I can diversify. So I could be 70% bad girl art, and then I could be 10% indie, just in case I hit a home run on those. And then I could be 20% key Marvel DC from the last 20 years. And I'm not diversified. I'm diversified enough, but I'm not destroyed my core. And so what is that like? Because even branching out slightly, and even branching out in product line as well, because that's the other thing that's also very important, where I think a lot of people don't understand that. I was speaking to Ben Lacey, and he has Shark of War, and he bought these items that are like almost like puffed out shark type things, because obviously he has sort of a book that deals with that, or it's like a puffed out shark, and it cost him $1, and he sells those for $5 at a con, but it ties to his book. And so
Yeah.
what is that like? 'Cause that's also how people can make money and really monetize effectively, and it's so interesting because I haven't done that yet.
So the worst thing you can do is go to a comic convention and just assume everyone's just gonna want a book, because you might have someone come up to your stand that only has $2. Well, you still want to make a sale and maybe get a fan that will come back later. So maybe you could have like a $1 sticker, something that is either in reference to your book or in reference to your brand. Because if you're not just promoting your book, promote you. Because if you're just a jerk and you're just an awful person online and in person, no one's going to want to support your book because they don't want to support you. So it's a balance of, not only do you have to have a good product and good products that support that product, but good products and product that support you and show who you are as a person as well.
Oh man, you brought up so many points in that, and I don't know if that was intentional, but I mean, I even make the argument that if I would love to have a table at a con, and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
sell anything, I don't want to sell anything. All I want to do is I want a table so that I could go and hand out my business cards. I could go hand
Mm-hmm.
out free buddies and just bring awareness. Where I would even make the argument that saying, "Hey, here's my podcast. Here's my business card. I want a free button," and you just get a gigantic sign that says free buttons, and you bring 5,000 of them. And the whole point of what I want to do is I just want to bring awareness, because to me that is worth more, because now if I can even get 1% or 10% of those 5,000 people and bring them into my tribe, that's an excellent rate of return. Even if that table costs me $500, if I can
Yeah.
get 500 people now to like my Facebook page and listen to my next podcast episode, that is so much more effective than making any sale I've ever made, because now I'm
Yeah.
getting people into my tribe. And I would rather, because I'll just chalk it up as marketing costs. And to me, that's just good business. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not even making sales, but even just saying, "Hey, here's my business card. Here's a bookmark. Here's this," and just legitimately prepping up that way and doing promo stuff, because that's what I figured out when I used to do conventions, is that I used to do panels. I said, "Hey, everybody throws my business card." I used to walk after my panel and I handed out 150 business cards. 75 of them were on the floor. I started handing out buttons, not on the floor. Now, one of them was on the floor, and then I also say to the people at the back who are like the moderators, "Hey, you guys want a button too?" And then you just start, so super interesting in that
Stickers are a
regard.
good investment as well. Stickers and buttons. Um, and if you can ever afford it, pins as well, because there are people that collect pins. But yeah, I've met a lot of people at cons that just sit and do a panel with, like, they're just promoting a podcast or a YouTube channel. And I've been on a couple of podcasts like that. Like, that's an actual thing that could be done to market what you do. And it's also a place where your audience would be. Because when you go to a comic convention, you're with comic fans, or at least people that might be slightly interested in comics. It'd be like going on Facebook and joining a comic group, except you're with real people who you can actually engage with and be like, hey, this is my podcast. Check it out. This is actually me.
It's so weird because I've never gotten a fan from a con. I've done like 50 panels talking about anime, talking about this, and talking about comic book investing. And I mean, I've sold out panel rooms, and I've never gotten a fan from it.
See, I'm curious about that, which I'm sure it's probably like the area you're in, because I know here in the South, there's so little comic community here. It's all rednecks and stuff.
I'm going to dismiss your point because I was in Washington, D.C. for a while, and that's a very cultured area. You know, places like Anime USA and Awesome Con attract a lot of people. You know, I've been in the New York area, so I've done Anime NYC. I've done, you know, obviously ToriCon and Anime Next. I've done Anime Boston. So what I figured out is that, you know what it is? I say, hey guys, here's my Facebook page, and nobody wants to pay attention. But then when I start posting in Facebook groups and I start engaging, and then even when I run Facebook ads, and the way I run Facebook ads, you know, I start getting page follows and people actually start paying attention. But a lot of what I do is I just post in groups because that's the cheapest position to be in. And, you know, but I'm also figuring out is that there's also tremendous competition right now. And that I know people who do not post in groups and they have like 9 views or they have 100 views and I might have 400 or 500, but it's the idea that there is not a lot of growth. It's a very, very, very difficult segment to be in right now. And a lot of the people who have big numbers, you know, I mean, they have big numbers because they're controversial, but they're not adding any value. You know, if people go over to my comic book investing, you know, YouTube page, there's so much value there. But there's like literally, my YouTube channel subscribes to them, and I think my mom subscribes to them. And nobody is listening to that stuff. And then fast forward, I can teach. Literally, I have a very quick budget tutorial how to build a comic book budget on that channel, and nobody watches it. And then people say, "How do you do it?" And I'm like, "Here you go." So it's very complicated. But
if you have any how-to videos, check out Skillshare as well. They're kind of like...
This business is coming in June. Is the entire 22.5-hour class on how to comic book invest as the basis. It's coming. And let's just say that I am 25% done with building it out. And so it's going to be expensive. It's going to be a little pricey. And I'm looking forward to it.
Well, go big or go home, right?
It's going to be like a $200 class.
That's always what I tell my customers at Starbucks. Should I get the small or the large? Obviously, you want the large. You're going to be spending $10 on a drink anyways. Get the big one. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I shouldn't tell you this, but I prefer Dunkin' Donuts over Starbucks. No.
That's it. Disqualified. Canceled.
I do enjoy a Dunkin' Donut more than anything Starbucks offers as far as a donut. I think Dunkin' Donuts as far as a donut beats Starbucks.
Oh, Starbucks only has one donut, and it's not that good. It has one donut.
They need to
I have one in my cabinet, and I'm not touching it.
They need to step up their game. They really need to step up their game in their donut game. I'm just saying. But their
They need more donuts.
Phenomenal. And I do like their lemon pound cake. That's good too.
Yeah, they got some pretty good stuff, including me.
So many jokes can be said about that. That's good. That's good. That's good. I completely lost my.
And one thing I've broken the system on is I bought a couple of pins to promote my website and to promote some friends' websites, and I just have them on my apron. And both of our websites have like tripled in sales just because of my pins. It's great. I'm under the table promoting stuff without saying a word.
Maybe I should do pins as my Kickstarter reward for like Oh, that could be interesting because I'm a metal card guy. I love metal cards,
Hmm.
and that's like my go-to thing. I collect metal cards, and I think metal cards are the greatest thing ever. Poker chips are cool too, um, but I don't really feel like paying for the art on a poker chip right now. So that's so interesting about because I don't like pins. I get pins with Zenoscope and their Zen boxes, and I hate pins. I hate them because I don't wear pins. I don't utilize pins. They don't do it for me. I at this stage in the game, I don't want any more trinkets with
Hmm.
you know my Kickstarter stuff, minus a metal card or a magnet. I don't really want a sticker. I don't want to. I don't. If you give me an 11 by 17 print, I'll take it. I'll be thrilled with it. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a nice, stretch goal because you actually have to put effort to ship it to me. That's really where the stretch goal is. I appreciate effort.
Hmm.
Poker chips are fun, but I'm not loving them either. But metal cards are my go-to because I have a metal card collection at this point.
Here's
And
my biggest advice when it comes to promoting, selling, teaching anything. Provide the stuff that you consume.
that's true. That's true. My entire comic book investment class is legitimately built on the foundation of what I've learned in the last 10 years, and I follow it. And I can't teach certain things because I legally can't advise somebody in certain things. Like I can't tell somebody, "Hey, buy this particular comic," and I'm not gonna tell you what comic to buy, but I can tell you what the foundation is. And the reason why I don't want to tell you what comics to buy when I'm teaching is because everybody has different preferences, but all the foundations, whether you're buying a Marvel book, a DC book, an Image book, a Zensko book, or a Titan Comics book, or a Dark Horse book, is all the same. All the research tools are all the same. Now, obviously, some sites are going to give you more access to DC comic information than a Marvel book, and you have to figure out where that goes. But once you figure out what sites do that, it's all the same. But understanding what somebody's opinion is in comics and what a fact is, or what the spin is very different. But that's
Hmm.
neither here nor there. That's going to be a fun class to market because I know the exact ad to run because I've already run it. And let's just say that ad is a beast. On $20, that ad does a lot, and it's
Well,
a.
hey, sounds like you got it figured out. Mostly.
I just need to build the class. Building a 22 and a half hour PowerPoint is a freaking beast and a pain in the ass.
Yeah, when you think about hours, like oh, 22 hours. That's not that bad. I could do that in a day. But no, it's not just 22 hours. It's 22 hours of content when the rest of it's like, what do I cut out? What do I? I've recorded enough videos to know that a 2 hour video might be published as a 2 minute video.
Oh no! When I record straight up. People don't understand that it's like me lecturing, and it's treated like as if I'm in front of you and I'm running an
Hmm.
entire college semester. That's how this class is run. So there's no editing and there's no cuts in this.
Gotcha. So if I join the class, I need to bring about 5 monsters and a sleep pillow.
So it's in modules,
Okay,
but
good.
the lectures are not edited. So you're getting almost what is a recorded live lecture. It's built that way purposely because it is the easiest way to record. What people don't understand is when building this, and I would imagine it's the same thing when you're writing a comic. And the reason why I bring all this up and how I'm looking at the comics is that for you to do a page, you might draw and write a page. It might take you an hour
Hmm.
to draw it, or it might take you 12 hours to draw it, but it didn't take you 12 hours to do it. It took you a lot longer because you had to come up with the concept, the story. You had to come up with the
Hmm.
idea. You had to say, okay, how is this going to work in this segment? And how does it connect with page 3 and page 5? And has this
Yeah,
set?
it's such a loaded question because people ask you, "Oh, how long did it take you to do this? From what point? From the point that I started thinking about it? From the point of page one actually in the book? Or that's like such a loaded question because like, where is technically the start of when you started? Because sure, you have a finished product and there's a page one all the way to page wherever, but there's so many layers under that. There's storyboards, there's scripting, there's the concepts that went into it. There's the concept art. There's so many layers between book or page 1 and page 200. And that's where a lot of customers don't, or readers, they're just like, oh, this is just a book. There's so much more that goes into it. And that's one of the reasons why I want a lot of my promotion and stuff. I want my customer base to be the people like me, creators as well. So a lot of my stuff that I sell at cons, a lot of the stuff in my book is creator focused. Because we get left out of a lot of stuff. I can't name a single movie where there's a creator as a main character, and that's kind of sad because we're pretty cool people.
I don't know. There's a few. There's a few.
Yeah, a few. But we need more. I'm a lot more invested in a story if I know the main character is a creator or something. But, like, I do definitely want most of my business to be creator focused because we need some more support. We need more people.
So it's very interesting because I am in the camp, and we're going to get slightly controversial here, but I don't think we're going to get all that controversial.
Am I going to be canceled?
I don't think so. I don't think so on this one. I think that one, and I'll state my opinion, and you state how you feel about it. I think it's a very interesting. When I saw a bunch of creators, and obviously I don't know, I'll tell everybody what I usually do on Kickstarter. I try to back one project a month, and I look at it because that's my budget, and my budget is usually $20 to $30 is my sweet spot. So I have a rule where I only back one project. So if you are a friend of mine and 10 of my friends come knocking, and I also see a really cool project and it's the 11th, I'm going to be backing that project. It doesn't matter if I'm backing it digital. It doesn't matter if I'm backing it physical. I would like to back a project physically, all the time, first and foremost. And then, November, I haven't picked one up yet. In November, I don't know where I'm going. So I'm still deciding, and I don't know. That's my rule because I believe that indie has to support indie. I believe that as a content creator, I need to go back projects. And look, I have friends sometimes, and I don't love their work, but I know that their best work is yet to come, and I have to back certain of their projects. And
yeah, it's like when you have a kid that scribbles some crayons, but you still got to tell that kid that that's some really good artwork. Otherwise, they're gonna just drop it, and they may never become like the next generation artist.
I'll give an example. Nandor Fox. I thought he just had Lifelines, and Lifelines is a really good book. I like Nandor a lot, and he's great. But I didn't think that his book before that was better than Lifelines. But if I didn't go out there, and I didn't know that if I could have, I would have picked up, Seasons. I think Lifelines is a better book than Seasons. Now, if I was in the position that I might have to go back a project to somebody's because they need to get to the next level. And it's this idea that, if you back Seasons and you gave Nandor an ability to fund and get that book done, and that led to Lifeline, which is a better book than Man-Child, is a very interesting book that he's doing. And I'm not too sure which way it's going, but I enjoyed reading the first one. If all of a sudden, he could take him 4 or 5 more books before he hits a super good book and his career is made. So if you backed his project, you got him there. So that's the thing about this. And when people put up on Facebook saying, I can't back every project, I only want to back projects that I want to read. And my issue with that statement is that you're a creator saying that. And look, you could think whatever you want, but I think that was one of the most dangerous things that has been said this year in indie comics. Because that, to me, is saying, I'm only backing projects that I want to read, not understanding there's a bigger picture here. And
that is fair. Like, if a project just doesn't look interesting to you, that's fair. Like, spend your money on what you want to spend your money on. And if you genuinely are not interested in a project or its creator, that's fair. Like, I don't really feel like you can be judged for that.
Tricky is that when you're running a Kickstarter and you put that statement out, it gets tricky, and then you make the statement saying indie has to support indie. And a bunch of these people have done that, where all of a sudden you have semi-conflicting positions. And so I got
Yeah.
no problem with anybody thinking what they want to think. I have a problem when there's hypocrisy in the room because I
Yeah.
am supporting indie. I'm the guy who shares out a lot of people's content. I post these interviews in 60, 70, 80 groups. I put it up on YouTube. I'm putting it out on Rumble. This is going to be in a podcast. So people's content is getting out there. And look, I back certain people's projects. I can't back everybody's project, and I get it. But, if you're going to support, and you're making those statements, that's my issue, is that you can't say that statement and then say indie support my project at the same time. And that's my problem with what's going on in that realm. And I just think it's a very
Yeah.
dangerous rope that people walk on.
If you're posting, like, I'm only going to support the things I want to read, if people only support you because they want to read your work, that's on you, officially.
Because this is where it gets complicated, is that my
People start
understanding.
getting spiteful.
Yeah, yes, I'm
You've
very
called them out.
completely. You nailed me with a hammer. Completely, I'm a very spiteful person. Completely. Because this is where it gets tricky. That my understanding of Kickstarter is that you're supporting projects because you think the project is cool, but also I support people on Kickstarter, and I know other people do as well, because they like the person. They want the person is not an asshole, for lack of a better word. And that's where this gets complicated, because Kickstarter is not just the book anymore. It's really
Like,
not. It's your
if you don't want to read the book, back it without a reward. You don't have to have a reward. That's just something that we give you because we want you to get what you paid for. But if you don't want to have a product, just drop $500 in my lap and be gone. Simply.
Because me and Ben Dunn were having this conversation, and this is why I bring this up, because, and this is why I say this is a very dangerous position, I feel, is that somebody is not just backing, if I get my Kickstarter approved and I'm going to sort of look at it tomorrow, they're not just backing because they think the podcast is cool anymore. They're saying, man, Andrew's a good guy. Andrew's actually doing something cool for indie. There's more to it, because I don't back projects just based on the book anymore, because I'm at the stage where there's legitimately 10 books that are all the same, and they're not all the same, but they're all, I assign a point value to books, for lack of a better word. And now I say, okay, who is a decent human being? Because they are all the same. Their stretch goals are the same. Their track record's the same. They're all going to have the same relative resale value. Who is a decent human being at this point? Because that's factoring too now in my world. Because
That's what I was saying earlier by make sure you are sellable yourself. Because if you're just an asshole, no one's going to want to buy. You could have the greatest book in the world, but if you don't have resale value, no one's going to back it.
see, it's so tricky. It's so tricky, and we would go through why Kickstarter is the complete wrong business model, but that's what my product's going to solve in February. So I'm going to take a lock on that one. But I do want to actually get into rewards with your book, because there's a lot of cool shit going on with this too. So I like the fact that for those who read PDFs and want to get the book and don't want to basically go broke for it, which I don't think anybody can really go broke on your project all that much.
The book's going to get produced either way. So if you don't want the special goods, that's fair enough. But this is the last chance to get any special goods.
Until book four.
No Kickstarter for book 4, so no special goods. This is the last chance to get the special goods.
So what I like about your Kickstarter is that the PDF for book 3, if you have the PDFs for books 1 or 2 or Money's Tight, is only $5, and then the catch up is 12. So for the PDFs, and then the physical copy, I think for book 3 is 15. And that's one of the things that I actually really like about your Kickstarter, is that you're not trying to bankrupt me. And I hate to say this, but certain Kickstarters, I feel, are trying to squeeze every dime out of me.
Oh yeah, I've seen like a 20-page comic go for like 30 on Kickstarter, and it's just like, that's more than $2 a page. I personally could not afford that. Like, if I really wanted to back that Kickstarter, I probably would have done like $1 or $2. But like, if the price was just more reasonable for the product, sure. but the price has to be reasonable.
It's also like I buy a lot of variant covers, so I got no
Hmm.
problem because I will buy a 250 print run from Zenescope for $25 is the sweet spot. But I've seen 250 print runs for like $45, and I'm like, no fucking way, because it's overpriced. I've
Hmm.
seen books done by certain people, and I'm like, this is a $35 book, and it should really be a $20 book. And
Hmm.
there that's a point. And then also it's the idea that I'm like, this is there's a sweet spot, and I think that also you're doing a manga as
Hmm.
well, and it's slightly
200
different, but
pages every
also
book.
what?
200 pages for every book.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And so, and also you're so we're going to talk about why you're doing a manga and even Rise of Manga, but I like the fact that it is very affordable. So if you want to get this book, it's $15 for a 200-page book, and you're going to sign it. I think that that's
Hmm.
crucial because at a certain point, you also need to get the book into your audience's hands. And if
Hmm.
you overprice something, it's not going to work very well because no
Yeah.
one's going to be able to read it and afford it.
Yeah. For us, okay. With the thing with me saying only sell the stuff you'd want to buy, I'm a very cheap person. I'm not going to price my book at a price where I personally would not buy it.
And also, isn't I mean, I know that with indie comics, the competition, you really can't compare an indie comic to a mainstream book per se. But if I go into Barnes and Noble and I want to buy a copy of One Piece in a manga format, that's a $10 book. For me to
Depending
go,
on the book. Some of
so
them will be priced at least 17, but those are very niche publishers. But yeah, it's usually around 10 to
oh, oh,
15. And those are smaller books generally, because a mainstream manga goes for, I think, 150 pages or 180.
yeah. Usually, Shonen Jump does. I think One Piece is 180 because I think it's 10 chapters and each one is 18 pages from my understanding. And then you get like maybe like 6 or 7 promo pages essentially in there. So we're talking about like a 190 book for about $10 Shonen Jump style. The
Yeah.
reason why I bring this up is that, and then a book like Real is about 13, 14 bucks. And then you get something like Basilisk and the nice hardcover. That's a $50 book. But those things are beautiful.
And you
Those,
also have to keep in mind, like, it costs them maybe 50 cents to print those books. Meanwhile, it's costing people like me, like, $3 per book.
the reason why I'm not beating you up on cost, believe me, is that I'm saying to go from $10 to $15 is not a big jump in
Yeah.
reality. It seems that it's a 33% jump, but it's still within a reasonable price point of it.
And the
Versus,
thing with cons is people get really excited if they can pick up a book and look directly in the eyes of the person who wrote it. You could shake their hand and be like, hey, like, what inspired this? And there's value in that too. Because when you go to the bookstore, you're not looking the creator directly in the eyes. You're looking at a product. You don't know if they're an asshole in their real life. You don't know if they're like beating cats in their spare time. You don't know. You're just looking at the product. There's no person, just product.
unless you're like me, who has gone through so many people at this point, you're like, I know that author, that one. It's terrible. It's
Okay,
so
one
bad,
thing
so
that
bad.
blows my mind is the fact that I'm in so many groups with Ben Dunn. My first How to Draw Manga book was one of his, and I just think it's absolutely bonkers that I'm in the same groups with him. It's wild.
Yeah, no, I need to go to Texas and I need to bring him a copy of Ninja High School so he'll draw me one of the characters in a bikini and he said he'll do it for free. So I'm gonna just die with laughter because he's gonna do whatever he wants. It's gonna be great. It's gonna
Like, I honestly wish I still had that book because it's so cool knowing that my first How to Draw Manga book, I'm in the same groups as the guy who wrote it. And that's absolutely wild to me. That's wild.
I love Ben Dunn. I was so shocked when he wanted to be on my show. I'm like, hey man, you want to come on? He's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I was like, oh snap! Like, it's not the greatest story that I have in comics though. There are two that trump it for a good reason. Actually, technically three. No, actually four. Being in Paul Levitz's house, interviewing Paul Levitz from DC Comics is the greatest thing because what I saw is in the vault for life. It is the ultimate comic thing that you could probably see. Denny O'Neil and that conversation was a great one. Dennis Kitchen was phenomenal, and then Howard Cruz. Those four are amazing interviews, and very very cool. And then
You know you've made it when you start talking like names like those, like, oh yeah, I've just hung out like last week with this dude, it's just fine. When it's just like one of the big names in like indie comics or comics. And it's so wild to think, because it's just like, I'm living in like a one bedroom apartment, but it's like, but I know all these people. But to me, it feels like I'm big now because I'm with the big people. Does that make any sense? Probably not. I probably just sound like I'm talking out my butt.
It's very interesting when Zenoscope starts referring to you saying, hey, Andrew, what do you think this is worth?
Yeah.
It's a very funny conversation when companies do that, and super interesting. And then that's just fascinating in that regard. But getting back to your rewards, obviously you get book 3, $15 signed, and then you could also get the physical copies of books 1, 2, and 3. And I don't know.
Should I pull it up?
I think that's what, $10 a piece. My memory is working right now really well.
Should I pull it up and share my screen or anything?
I mean, we can. Yeah, I got really lazy and I just ran out of like the ability to like copy and paste because it was like going in like 15 things. And then I know you have a commission. I think that's 90 with a bunch of stuff in there. And then I'm going off my notes here. And then you have a biggie box. And then you have the special cover design, which we're going to talk about too, because I think that's super interesting. Yeah, we could go here.
I figured it'd make it easier so we don't have to work on a memory.
I wrote it all down. I'm not memorizing half of this. I wrote it all down. I actually prepped up because I actually prepped up. I watched Law and Order Organized Crime, episode 8, and then I worked on your interview.
Yeah.
I actually work hard. Like,
if I was working on memory, I'd be down in the dumps.
I probably could have done this entire thing off of my memory too, because it's not. I mean, that's what Monday's going to look like. I got 5 interviews to write this week.
Jeez. Well, good luck on that.
I'll explain for those who are curious. Thanksgiving is coming, so I work backwards, not forwards. So during Thanksgiving, I'm only going to be able to get like 1 interview in during that entire week. So I have to find a way how to get the other 3 in the other weeks, and that's why I would do 5 here, 5 here, 5 there, and all of a sudden you solve a problem.
Yeah, I guess it gets complicated with so many interviews, but I guess it's fun as well because it keeps you on your toes.
Somewhat, yeah. And then you should see what I was going to do. And then once this goes into podcast form, I got so much content. I got 90 from last year. I'm going to be hitting like 170, 180. And then going forward, I'm doing a bunch of secret interviews that are only going to be on the podcast side. I have a whole battle plan. But this is not about me. It's about you.
Oh, that's fine.
So you got 6 days left now.
Yeah, I've got less than a week left, and I can't promote it or anything because I've been Zuckerberged. I've had all my friends posting my Kickstarter for me, being like "R.I.P. coffee."
This is why you need to buy ads on people's shows.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do, and I made a post on a few of the comic groups, being like, "Hey, I have a Kickstarter. I didn't post any links. Like, is there anyone doing interviews?" And those posts got instantly taken down for promoting a Kickstarter. It's just like, I just want some interviews. It's not so hard to ask.
So it's so weird because I post And I'm like, hey guys, nothing in my world's gotten flagged. I'm like, here's my form, here's my Google form, sign up. All these people who are running Kickstarters, I'm like, I put up a post like maybe like 3 weeks ago. I said, hey, I feel like it's junior prom again. I don't have a date. Like, meaning like I'm an interviewer. I'm always looking for it. How come all my regulars haven't hit me up? And I'm like, guys, where are you guys at? And it's like, I'm not going to go beg you for an interview. Come talk to me. It's like the weirdest thing. And like a bunch of people thought it was funny. But like, and at this point, I don't have an interview problem because I will go find somebody in cosplay. I will go find a wrestler. I will go find a cosplayer, a voice actor. I haven't touched voice acting in like 6 months, and that's a whole big sector I could play in. So I'm at the stage where people have to come to me. I'm very approachable. I'm very askable. And if you just legitimately look around, it's not that hard. I have a group of 271 people,
I
and
always feel like I'm bugging people, so I try not to go to people because it's just like, oh, they're already so busy.
see
I'm
that's
just
the
little old
problem.
me.
That's the problem is that so I'm having Mike Barron on. That's going to be a fun interview. It's going to be controversial, and I know it's going to be great. I mean, we're talking about Thin Blue Line. I have no problem going into certain things, and I speak to everybody, and I don't really care who loves me or hates me, and I'm going to get both sides of it. Um, but next week I have 5 interviews, and I didn't have 4 of them till yesterday.
Okay, well, that's good. That's great.
So the point I'm trying to make is that just ask me for everybody who wants an interview.
Yeah. Honestly, you're the only one I know of that does interviews like this. I think Chuck does them every now and then. I should probably ask him for one in
Every
these
week he
six
has one.
days.
Every week.
I should probably message him or something because he's got book one and book two. He should give me something. Hey, I just got a notification that you're interviewing me.
So what are the rewards before we get? I haven't been taken off yet, which means that definitely Kickstarter is cracking down on Kickstarter links. They're definitely cracking down on that. I'm like 90% sure on that.
Oh, so you think like that could be getting flagged for this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so well here I'll just like stop sharing the screen then.
No. I don't think it's the screen. I think it's the actual link that I was putting up in the interview. That's why I put it into
Okay.
an hourly link. So I think the screen share will be fine because we were sharing screens with on Tuesday and that was fine. I don't think Kickstarter wants the I'm trying to think of like
But that's
this.
so dumb. Like they give you the links to share. But anyways, so at $1, of course, you get a special thanks, which goes in like this really big page at the end. For $5, you get the PDF, which is not just limited to book three. Like if you're just getting started and just want book one, you can get book one, book two. It doesn't matter. I have the starter pack for PDF. It's $12. You get all 3 PDFs, and every Kickstarter backer gets a special thanks. For 15, you get a signed copy of book 3. Again, that's not just limited to book 3. You can get any of the 3 books. Like, if you just want to get started, like, that's fine. For for some reason, Kickstarter really didn't like my even numbers, so it lowered everything $1. So, apparently for $39, you get all 3 of the physical books. They're all signed copies. For 90, you get the digital pack and a digital commission. Anything you want. I do NSFW, I do furry, it doesn't matter. I have no standards. For 250, you get a biggie box, which is you get 3 PDFs, a commission, stickers. I print my own stickers now. You get a special edition artwork print because I'm doing special covers for this run, which is limited to only the Kickstarter backers and Patreon backers. So if you don't get them, I'm just going to... Well, I can't really burn them, because one thing about Mixam's books, they're fireproof.
Well, we're gonna have to break that. We're gonna have to find how we're gonna burn them.
So And for $300, this is the one I mentioned earlier. I designed a cover specifically for that's like dedicated to you and have your name on the cover. And
So, so, so yeah.
that includes the Biggie Box reward. So you get like all three books.
So to even talk about that, because obviously, and maybe this is just me, is that I view that as almost like a retail package type deal, where a store, if you're a comic shop and say, hey, look, I got a big manga base that's into certain things, they might want to pick up 25 books of this and have it specifically designed for their store and for the purpose of saying, hey, this is only an exclusive for us. Because,
Yeah, like that's definitely something you could do because the minimum order for Mixam is 50 books, and that's around $250. That's including the shipping. So obviously, if you're gonna pay $300, you could have you a whole box of books dedicated to you, or even like half books dedicated and half books are like whatever covers you want. The thing about that is I have the minimum, obviously the minimum reward amount for 425. That's just to get book 3 printed. I need at least 750 for the special covers. Unless you get like the special 301, I'm going to do that anyways. But if you want all three books to have a special cover, I need at least 750.
yeah, that because what I like, and I've been saying this, and I don't know how many people truly listen, but I'm a big, obviously I'm a big investor in the traditional stock market and a variety of other entities. And one of the things that I've been saying is that what's going to dictate entertainment is going to be big libraries,
Hmm.
also on demand, meaning that you can, print or you can watch it anytime and customization slash choice. And so you look at Netflix, legit, you can watch Netflix anytime you want. It's a huge library, and you have a hell of a lot of choice with Netflix. You don't have
Hmm.
customization yet, meaning you can't produce your own show on Netflix, but you have a lot of choice.
Hmm.
And so one of the things that I think has to happen in comics, and I'm curious how you think about it, I think that your $300 tier sort of solves that, is that somebody can now go build their own covers and they can
Hmm.
go build their own position, and then they have a lot of saying, hey, look, I like this. I know from either a Christmas gift, because if you have a bunch of friends who are love manga and you have a group of 25 friends, obviously it could be a really cool gift saying, hey guys, I made it for all of us and we're all on this cover in some fashion or whatnot. Or if you're a comic shop or you're like me, where I have an eBay store, all of a sudden I have now a product that is exclusively driven for pop
That's
anime.
exclusively yours. Like it's still my book, but you're the only place where you can get that specific cover of it. And I figured for like if an artist wants to design their own cover for their own like 25 books, like I could promote them that way too. Cuz I definitely want to find some way to give back to indie artists. And if I can have ads in my book for other people's books or, let them design their own cover,
I would buy
that's perfectly
ads.
fine.
I would buy ads, no question about it, because I understand from a business side, it makes complete sense on my end
Yeah.
that I should buy ads. That obviously getting out in front of people, having those things, and I think that's what people don't understand.
I've bought ads in people's books before.
I don't really even know where I can buy ads, in which that I don't know whose books and who sells. Like I know where I could buy podcast stuff. I don't know where I could buy comic ads.
You just
And
kind of gotta like run into it, like either on the groups or just find an indie producer who's making their own book,
see,
and that's pretty much it.
what I want to buy, and I'll pay real good money for it too, is I want to put my logo in everybody's freaking comic books in some fashion, almost as an Easter egg. And so I thoroughly enjoy. I love thank you pages in the back. My name is not Andrew Mecca Davis or Andrew Davis in the back of the book. It's Pop Anime Comics, because I'm smart enough on a thank you page to use my company's name. Because all of a sudden, if you back 500 products and people
One
read,
thing I did in book 2 which is it's relevant to what you were saying. I promise. See if I can find the page with it. There was a Kickstarter reward, which I forgot to do this time. One thing that you could have done with book 2, which I literally forgot to do it with book 3, which it can still be done, but because I'm drawing every single page myself, if someone wanted their character in the background, that was something I did. I have a whole page with just other people's characters in the background that they wanted in it. I'm trying to find the specific page. Sorry about that.
So I'll throw a really cool fact, and I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it on Tuesday.
Like these characters right here on this page, those are all like my backers characters, all of those. And then I have a page in the front where it has like people's names, because I have a character who owns a graveyard and he honors the people in the graveyard by having people's names, and they could put their characters' names on the gravestones, and that was something I did. So, like, if you wanted, like, Pop Anime Comics on, like, a gravestone, that's definitely something I could do.
No, it's very important, and I think a lot of creators don't get creative with this. Like, I understand, I want my name, and my name isn't trademarked yet, and I'm in the process of doing that, and also copywriting and protecting and doing a bunch of stuff. But I also understand that Pop Anime Comics is a big company. It's not just my website. It's not just a Facebook page. It's not just conversations in pop culture. There are other components to this. It is becoming very much a holding company, and I understand where I'm going in the next 3 to 5 years with it. And hopefully I'll have an exit, and a nice big exit on it. Because if I'm producing real money, and then the product I want to build in February is going to be under that too. And so obviously I understand putting subtle marketing into books is very cool. First appearance of Hellboy was in Sin City. So people don't know that. It's a really cool piece of trivia, and it's a very important piece of trivia, because if you saw it, you're like, oh snap, what's this on the wall over there? And then, well, Hellboy is now somewhere in a book, and then boom, if you're launching a comic character, you have a character design, and it's relevant, and you could be snuck into another comic that has maybe 400 or 500 backers. I've seen that before, and people have to get creative. What if you did that times 10, 15, 20, and all of a sudden now people recognize your character? So I have that cute little elf up there. You know, what if that elf was in 20 comic books that has circulation of 2,000 to 3,000 readers, and then all of a sudden I'm writing a book about goblins and elves? You know, and
what I do is when I have a shout out to like a creator or something, or like a backer, if I know someone who has put their character in my book or put their name in my book, I always make sure to point out at the end, this belongs to them.
Oh, see, I would want it to not be that way, because I want it to be like a secret cameo. That's the whole point, is that then it becomes an Easter egg, so that when I state it, I say, what was the first appearance? And that's,
but how do they find you?
So you start pointing to certain people. You say, was it in this book, this book, this book? And what I want is, I just want people to just say, I've seen that before, and then it becomes a whole thing for all the people who back your book and see it, and then they come across me and like, oh man, I have that character's first appearance, and it adds value to your book. I think very differently, and it adds value.
That's a bit of a dangerous game, because if someone sees the same character in 2 books, and it's not mentioned that, like, hey, I have permission to use this character, they're going to be like, oh, you stole it. So that's a bit of a dangerous game, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so I'm not concerned about the public position as long as I'm legally protected. That's how I care about it. The legality is the only thing I care about on that realm, because public perception and legality are 2 different things in my world. So if I am legally protected, I don't really care what somebody thinks about it. You know, especially if, you know, it's announced, like if my logo was in your book, for instance, but we didn't mention it, it would be very hard, I think, for claiming us stealing if all of a sudden I've been using this logo for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
and then it was secretly in there, and then I used this as my comic character. I think it works in that regard. But I get the entire thing. That's how I think, because my goal is to make it so that all of a sudden, especially with a comic book, somebody goes gets that thing graded, and this becomes a super thing. Obviously,
Hmm.
I'm gonna get a bunch of copies of where my first character appeared. This way,
Yeah.
I understand what I'm doing. It's an investment play. It's not a story play, but I also think it's a very cool play because you're
Especially if you get a custom cover with the character on it.
exactly. See, people have to think because this is and then I mean, there's 15 things you could do. You could cross promote if you
Hmm.
know that you're a comic shop and you're also a comic writer, and then you get your character meeting a character in this book, and then all of a sudden you have that, and then you're launching your thing a few weeks later. It's amazing promotion. Or conversely, and
Like, you're
obviously,
not just buying a page in my book, you're buying the literal cover for 25 copies. Or not 20, 50 copies. 50 copies. 50. 50 copies dedicated to whatever you want it to be dedicated to. Like, literally, I have one backer on the 300 tier. So, book 3 is going to be pretty much fan art of Velma, but my character dressed as her. Because the guy who bought it is obsessed with Velma. So, literally, Serene's going to be cosplaying Velma because he backed the 300 thing. I'm going to have 50 books of book 3 with Velma on it. Somebody save book 3, please. That's all I
so
gotta say.
but I'm even thinking of this, and I'm sure you're not opposed to it, that if somebody
Mhm.
is also running a Kickstarter, from my understanding, if they wanted to distribute this and had you as a collaborator on their project, because that's what you need to do now with Kickstarter, if you didn't produce it, I don't think you would have a problem with that if they're going to be distributing 20 books as a reward if their characters on that cover as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Like if you want to be like, hey, my character's on your cover, can I use it as a reward? Hell yeah. That's more reach for my book, and that's more content for your people.
The
Like,
reason why I bring that up is because it's a creative play at this point. This is what I mean. Because what I
hmm.
find is I haven't come up with a good story yet in comics. I don't really know how to write comics. It's not something I've explored. I enjoy comics. I enjoy commentary on comics. As I stated, at some point I will try. I don't know if I will be successful, and I'm willing to at least say, "Hey, I'm going to try it." Now, what it gets, what I find, and where I'm going with this is that I find that comic people great at stories when it comes to marketing and it comes to ideas of what I just outlined. They don't even think about it, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm doing this. I wrote the copy. I did this. I'm doing all the interviews," and they don't even understand how to cross promote. And it's
Yeah.
very complicated because I see people cross promoting, but a print doesn't excite me. But if you have another cover where your two characters are meeting, I get more excited, you know,
Hmm.
with that. And that's what excites me because I'm like, oh man, this is another character, and this is a character. What's going on here? And it's not necessarily canon in both the stories, but something's happening here. And I think it's very, very enjoyable on my end for that purpose.
Yeah, like I wanted to do something for my last Kickstarter for this book. I wanted to do something special. And this is the last chance I'll have for people to be like I know a lot of people who are doing Kickstarters and stuff. It's just like I can literally get you some product. Or, if you've got a book that's struggling to get out there, I go to cons. I sell these books. If I have 50 copies of a book with your character or your logo on it or something promoting you, and you only want, say, 10 copies, I've got 40 copies I could sell at cons, which is also being like, hey, this is the person on the cover. Go check out their stuff as well. Because I definitely do that. Because I do get a lot of questions about the characters in the back of book 2. Like, who are all these characters? Are they yours? No. This one belongs to this person. This is this person's. Go check out their
That's
stuff
another
too.
thing that I was speaking to somebody, and we had this discussion about possibly me producing a variant, and then I would wholesale to people to be sold at cons. And like, person didn't understand what I was going with. They said, "Oh, if I'm selling somebody else's book, it's going to hurt me." And I said, "But it won't hurt you because you can sell your thing, and you're promoting somebody else. And then what if they have some of your books, and then all of a sudden you're both making a sale, and especially if the books work well together." It to
Yeah.
me, I think some people get it. I think some people don't. I think that because if I had a table at a con, and let's say I wrote, a book called Tank, for instance, and then I said to you, hey, you want to do a book swap? Can I buy books at you at wholesale? Can I buy them at a discount? And then let's say that nobody's interested in my book, but I'm selling your book. All of a sudden, while I might not be gaining a new customer because I'm not you per se, it's the idea though that I am making a sale. I'm making some money. It's helping my table costs get down or break even, and I'm at least speaking to people and say, "Oh yeah, my friend Coffee wrote this book and it's about this thing, and it's a good manga." And at least I'm interacting with somebody. Somebody, that guy's a really cool guy, and he's selling somebody else's book, and it's super interesting. But then if I have a variant cover of your book also, I was like, hey, this book might not be your thing. It doesn't, but Coffee's book does this, and my character is on Coffee's book, and this is cool. And so I'm like, oh, I love that character, and you ran out of Tanked, but I'll buy this book instead because that could happen too. I had Dan Wicklund on, and he sold out of books at a con in the first 3 hours of going to a con. He sold out of like 200 copies of a book, which is a great problem to have. Mm-hmm. If you sell out of merchandise in your first 3 hours at a con, you have.
I think that's everyone's goal. Is just go on, set up at a con, and just instantly have to leave because you have nothing.
He wound up getting other books from the publisher because they were there, but that's not the point. He was lucky in that regard. But it's the idea that if all of a sudden you run out of something and then you have another product to sell, it drives me crazy how people are not creative. I am very creative on the business side, and I just think I want comic creators to get creative on business because I want people to become wealthy. It drives me crazy. I want people to understand how to make money so that they aren't running a hobby anymore, but they're running a business.
It's one thing I learned while I worked at the mall, and I don't know if they do this in Cincinnati. You said you were from?
Mm-mm.
I don't know if they do this there.
I'm from New York, moved to D.C., moved to Connecticut, so I am not anywhere near Ohio.
It was one of those C ones. But in the mall, they have these Asian restaurants where you'll just have like these samples of like chicken. And here's why I'm bringing this up, because this was a piece of advice that a business guy gave me. You give a free sample, you sell something cheap, and then by the time you sell something cheap, you have a customer that will probably come back to buy more. And I do a lot of that, and a lot of my most loyal customers I got from just giving them free samples of my book, either the first copies of book one. I even have free samples of the book on my website for all three books, just like small little snippets, PDFs, so that if you don't know if it's like up your alley, you can go check it out. You can go download a PDF of just free samples of the book. One thing I'm wanting to do, and this is one of my stretch goals, is I'm trying to raise enough money to switch printers so that I can have colored pages in the mix of it. Because I do have this fantasy world in my book that I think would go really well drawn in color. But I don't want the whole book to be colored because there is such a energy with the black and white comics that I don't think you can really achieve with color. Unless you're just like a master. Yeah, unless you're just like a master colorist, which I'm not. And I do like the black and white comics, but I do think my world needs a few splashes of just colored pages. If I can get the stretch goal all the way up to 3,000, I would be changing printers to have a few splashes of colored pages. Because that is something that I feel like my book could really benefit from.
So this is my question to you. I'm actually going to throw you out an idea. Is that would you be opposed to doing a digital colored splash And for the meanwhile, and do it, because digital, and the reason why I asked this, and I'm not explaining it the best way, but printing a comic is different than having a digital PDF of the book. So color-wise, you could probably do that digitally right now. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get it printed.
I have the colored pages. I have them. I just don't have a way to print them.
Is the digital version having some colored splash pages, or are you keeping?
Now that you've mentioned it, I could probably add that, and I probably will.
Isn't it a great idea? Because
It's a great idea.
I would pay an extra, like, few dollars for a deluxe edition with the colored splashes. So I would pay as a PDF like $8 easy for the colored splashes, and then you just created a whole nother product, or and in that $8 you would throw in the black and white too. It's just a PDF file. It's not, but with the $5 tier, you would just keep it black and white.
Yeah, I'll probably do that and just update it on my website as well.
Because I just think it'd be cool to see it both ways. And I like when people tier up and they don't take away. Like, I don't like rewards when somebody's like, I have a black and white version and I have a colored version, and if you buy the colored version, you're not going to get the black and white version. That drives me crazy.
Yeah, you should get both.
It's kind of like if you're going to sell me a new digital version, I got no problem paying more for the new digital version, but you better include the free, nice, clean version in there too.
Yeah.
As well.
It's just good business. It makes sense.
And I also hate when people offer physical rewards and they don't offer me a digital. That kills me.
That was a mistake I made with the first two.
So upset.
But I learned. I learned, and I have digital, I have physical, I have special covers if we get to the 750 mark. But we have to get to the 750 mark, otherwise it's just book 3. Please save book 3.
What were you saying?
Save book 3. It's been backed by a madman. I absolutely love him, but he's a madman.
Hey, you know what it is? It's the crazy ones.
It's the crazy ones.
People don't like using the word crazy. I have a coworker, and my job is interesting because I'm dealing with accessibility. So he prefers to use the word banana because crazy can be offensive.
Yeah.
But I think we're all adults in the room here. And we all know that we're not attacking mental health people. Oh,
I'm offended now.
What?
I'm offended now. How could you?
Oh, I'm offended every day. Look, I'm having Mike Barron on.
I wake up offended.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great interview. I know that interview is gonna be sensitive. I'm expecting pushback. But then again, I expect pushback in my life. Every time I get pushed back, I know I'm on the right track. So, it's.
I don't know. Pain is the sense that the body has that something's wrong. So, keep that in mind.
When people start, so the way I know I'm on the right track is that when I'm explaining a concept to somebody, like saying, "Hey, why don't you sell somebody else's book?" and then they're pushing back, but I have an answer for their pushback, and it's not a perfect answer. That's when I know I'm on the right track. So when I have answers to questions, and when people try to test me, it's either one of two things. Either I didn't explain it. 3 things. I didn't explain it, they're not getting it, or it's a bad idea. It's one of those 3, and typically it's the first 2 usually. They're just not getting it, or it wasn't explained well. But I digress. You got a lot of stuff going on, and I do want to talk about the Rise of Manga because that's a fun topic too. And obviously, I like Ben Dunn. He's the American manga god, as I like to refer to him, and because that's what he did. I mean, he brought really a lot of American manga over. And
yeah, learning that he was American was just because, like, I was always taught, like, you can't be a manga artist if you're in America. It has to be comics. It has to be left to right. It has to be this specific art style. But then my older brother brought me, Ben Dunn's book, and it's just like, here's this, except for I was 8 years old when my brother bought it for me. So, and I still mad at her to this day for it. My mom made me color over all the lewd images in it.
So one of the things that I think really, so manga is just a style. I think
Hmm.
it's just a style. It's just a way to do business. It's also a business model as well versus American comics.
Hmm.
And I also think what really helped American manga is shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, shows like Ruby have really helped. Shows like Vampire Hunter D have really helped the American manga movement because Avatar is not an anime by definition, but it is considered in the anime world to be an exception to the rule because it is an American anime and it is treated like a Naruto, it is treated like a One Piece. Vampire
Yeah,
Hunter.
there's a big argument like, is Avatar anime? Technically, no, but it follows the business and it follows the style of anime. So anime fans are just like, I like it anyways.
It's also one of the exceptions. Ruby is also an
Hmm.
exception, meaning that Ruby is just where if you put Ruby into an anime discussion, you're not going to get dismissed. If you put
Right.
Steven's Universe into an anime discussion, it gets dismissed. Just not saying Steven's Universe isn't bad or Adventure Time. I enjoy Adventure Time. I enjoy Rick and Morty. You know,
Yeah, but they're not anime. They're just cartoons.
but
They're good cartoons, but they're not
yes,
anime.
yes.
And Ruby is on the fine line as well because it is a 3D style, and that is off-putting to a lot of people, me included. I'm not a fan of the 3D style.
Oh, I love Ruby. I love Ruby.
I've never seen it. I just can't get past the 3D. It feels unpersonal to me. Like, I feel this way with Disney stuff too. I don't like the 3D. I like to look at an image and be like, somebody drew this, not somebody put this into Blender. Which that's just my personal opinion. Don't cancel me, please. I'm a good one.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm not a big Disney fan, but I mean, if I could, I'd love to be a Disney princess. We all want to be.
Hmm.
I it's such a bad joke. Oh,
Look, if Darth Vader could be a Disney princess, so can you.
I'm right now having an issue with a friend, and if he ever calls me up because he hasn't spoken to me in a while, the first question I'm going to ask him, I'm going to be like, "So, what Disney princess do you want to be today?" And that's how we're going to fix the relationship. And when he's very very apprehensive of it, I'm going to say, "It's okay. We work through this problem. We all struggle on this question. So
Hmm.
it's going to be great. It's gonna be great." But a lot of fun stuff. So even talking about the rise of manga, how does it feel for you to be in a very cool position? Because right now manga is super hot at this point. It's
Well,
very much
see,
in demand,
it's
and
a bit concerning because the thing is, manga is rising up, but that also means the manga writers are stepping up their game. Meanwhile, while I'm in the middle of this game, there's a lot of really good product being released. When, like, if I had just worked a little bit faster or a little bit earlier, I might could have been the first ones. Like, maybe if I had worked a little bit faster, I could have been done. So that's a little bit, it's a little bit scary, but it's also like, well, there's more people writing manga, so it's more acceptable.
did
But
you
at the same
also
time,
yeah.
there's a lot higher expectations.
Do you also are you also concerned because one of the things that's sort of circulating in Zenoscope is that they might do a manga style book of like a Van Helsing, and that's being thrown around, and they were jokingly saying it, and that David Wool, who obviously has done a lot of stuff in comics on the big leagues, but is that also a concern? Is that since it's so hot, companies like Dark Horse or companies like Titan or companies like Zenoscope and a variety of others are asking and say, "Hey, look, we'll do
They're going where the money is. And yeah, that is concerning because, well, Dark Horse has already started doing it because they are mostly like indie people. But they've already hired
also
people like Mark Crilly, who does massively manga related
well,
stuff.
also Dark Horse has a manga division. For those
Hmm.
who don't know, Dark Horse is putting out the Berserk books, um, and they're putting them out in the nice hard covers. They're doing the Helsing books, and they're beautiful books. But they're not changing anything unless they're just making an image maybe a little bit better and nicer and rendering it appropriately, I guess, but they're not messing with the actual story. And Dark Horse has done manga in the past, um, but it's more along the lines of having an American comic done in it. And I just got a book in the mail from Kickstarter that's done has a manga cover on it, but it's an American book. So I'm very curious how you feel about that because you are very much in the traditional manga style where you're not an American comic.
I'm worried about I guess, the market being watered down. Because I know a lot of people, because the thing is, drawing manga is easy. It's easy. You don't have to study really, like, if you want to be good, yes, you study realism. You study all the stuff you would to draw regular, realistic comics. But it's easy. And the reason why it's easy is because it's fast. They do the small mouths, they do the dot noses, they do the very simplified faces because it's fast. So that they could put out a single book within a week. But then again, they also have like a million assistants doing all the backgrounds, all the toning, all the dialogue. But it's fast. It's fast, it's easy, it's cheap. But the thing is, American writers have started learning it's fast, it's easy, it's cheap. And I've seen a lot of like comic creators be like, manga is so much easier. I'm gonna switch to that. And the thing that worries me is I've got this book. It's a thick book. But a lot of comic artists are publishing books that are like this big.
Yeah.
With manga covers on it and advertising it as manga. And the issue I have with that is you're not getting a manga. You are getting a comic book in a manga style because you're still following the comic business model, the comic style, but it's drawn in a manga art style. And the thing that worries me is if all of these people are advertising manga that's not manga, they're going to look at me and be like, oh, he's another one of those.
Yeah, it gets tricky because it's the idea that, and I hate to use the word, but gatekeeping, the gatekeeping, I'm not a fan of gatekeeping, where I don't think anybody should be gatekeeped out of comments or anything like that. But
Yeah,
at the
no.
same time, you also need to protect integrity. I can't write about certain topics because, there's certain books that come across my position dealing with PTSD and military issues that are just not up to the par they should be, and I can't touch it. I can't interview somebody who I have a relationship to Veterans of Foreign Wars and Student Veterans of America down in DC, and I used to work there. So I can't, in good faith, touch something that's not up to that par. Something like White Donkey, which is a phenomenal book, I can touch that. Something like, I can't think of another book that I can touch, but like Winston Churchill, the graphic novel that came out about a year ago on him, I could touch that. But it's the reason how this relates to manga is that if something isn't up to a certain standard and then it gets published, well, it lowers the standard, and that's a real problem. And then also, you have people like Isaac Fox, and I love Isaac, and I'm looking forward to Succubus.
I love Isaac Fox. He backed my first Kickstarter, and I've been friends with him ever since.
But
I have several of his books in a box over there.
I try to back certain projects of his and certain books. Sometimes I just miss it. I have backed his latest that's up in about 3 days. And one of the things is that though he's doing sort of a half manga, half American style, and it's tricky because that, not to beat him up, but when you're going down this path, that obviously affects the perception of manga. And if we're going to be very honest, and then again, I'm not targeting because I actually like Kurmisa. I think Kurmisa is a great book, and Succubus is going to be fun, and hopefully it's going to live up to what he wants to do with it, because I want that book to do well. But when you go down that path and then you sort of change the perception, that can damage the traditional manga artist. And I did a guy from Singapore who does a traditional manga, and it gets tricky.
Like, I look at the books like Isaac Fox has done, and his stuff is great. No knocking on him, like, his stuff is great. And he's allowed to do his book, the way he damn well wants to. But honestly, I feel like his book would have sold a hell of a lot better had it followed the manga standard. But the thing is, like, I had a creator come to me and be like, you need to do your book like this. It can sell better like this. Sell it one chapter at a time, $10 a chapter. I said no, and they literally started like attacking me online because I didn't want to do that business model. Because it is becoming a standard to where American manga is this. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have a manga. I wanted to have a book that looked like a manga, flipped like a manga, that felt like an authentic manga. And so I wasn't going to budge on any of that. And the thing with a lot of printing companies is satin pages print a lot cheaper than the regular like paper pages. But there's a different feel to it, so I'm going to drop an extra $2 to have it have that feel. But with the thing with the smaller books is there's a bit of a standard to where they're doing these Kickstarters for 20 pages for $15. Meanwhile, that's becoming the standard, so like how's my book, which I guess 200 pages versus that, but it gets a little bit confusing because there's a price difference and
it's very tricky because I'm very good at logistics and operations. So if I'm in a big company, my best role is being a COO. Because I understand logistics and operations. I understand that price points, selling a lot, getting price points down, and then also marketing, a 200-page book and how fast you get out a 200-page book and all that stuff. And so it's very tricky. And also, naturally, if you're printing a 200-page book in the U.S., it's very different if you're printing it in China and all sorts of places. And I don't know the printing business as much as I should. I know very, very little because Mixum is a sponsor of mine. In which
they're so good. As far as getting books printed in America, they are the best. They're the best. I've looked at printing for so many years. So with my first Kickstarter, the reason why it took so long for that one to make it is I paid a guy in Taiwan like $600 to print me books. It turned out to just be a scam, but he was hanging out in all of these comic groups. He went after like pretty much all of the indie comic people he was like promoting my book, being like, hey, look what I printed, come to me. But he was scamming them too. So after that fell through, I was looking for like whatever printing company I could, and that's how I found Mixam. And they've been great to work with. Their customer service is like better than any, not just any not just any printing company, but they're better than any customer service I've ever had to deal with. Like, there's been times when I would have an emergency with my books, and I could just message them on Facebook, and they'd be like, we'll get the customer service with you. Like, they're so easy to work with. And the thing about their website, so with Amazon, you have to have a clean-cut PDF. While Mixam prefers a PDF, you can just upload like JPEGs to their site, and they put it on the pages for you. And you could just press a button and it switches the printing order from right to left. Meanwhile, with something like Amazon or any other printing service, I would have had to number my pages again, front to back. That's 200 pages that I would have to renumber. Mixam cuts that out. Mixam makes it so easy to make manga.
I know in the printing world, people use Comics Wellspring for 15% off on the bottom of their Kickstarter. But at the same time, I also know people have issues with Comics Wellspring. I know people have, other things going on, and I can tell the difference between a Mixam book and a Comics book.
I think they're also really expensive, because I remember looking into them. Mixam is also, like, as far as getting stuff printed in America, they're also the best priced. Like, how do you be that good of a company?
I could tell you that I'm not going to say who because me and I think it's a her. I'm not sure because when people have weird names on, Facebook, I don't know anymore. I don't. Also, people have pen names, and it's hard to tell sometimes. Um, but this person, what wound up happening is they wanted to print a book, and they waited 6 weeks, and the price changed from 2,700 to 3,200 with Mixup, and even with another company, it changed from like 2,700 to 4,200. So prices have shifted tremendously. And I think Mixum is relatively cheap for what they are, and that's why Mixum gives my listeners 5% off. Comics Wellspring gives you 15% off, and I haven't gone through Comics Wellspring per se, and I don't have to deal with them. But maybe Comics Wellspring has to give you 15% off because that's the only way they could be competitive against something other companies, and it's very interesting. The only thing why people use Comic Wellspring is that they need trading cards, they need other items, they need postcards, things like that. Comics Wellsprings does that, and also I don't know if Mixum does special covers like hollow foils and things like that, but
No, with them you would have to order a whole new set. But it's so easy to order a whole new set.
because I want to do medals and other stuff when I enter the comic realm, and I don't know how to do that at the moment. So that's a whole different ball game. But I'm not there yet, so I digress. And that kind of leads me to what I want to talk about last with you. And I think this is also the most interesting component, and we started speaking about it on a Tuesday before my show got hijacked. But where do you think cons are going? Where do you think COVID's going? And even how all that affects Kickstarter and really the future of comics? Because, and I'm throwing a lot at you, and you can tackle whichever issue you want to tackle or all of them.
With cons, I do think cons will go back to normal. I do think they would probably keep like the masks, like the mask mandates, which, to be honest, cons needed that anyways, because you could ask anyone that does cons often, con flu is a thing. I'm going to keep the masks. Just because I am so done going to cons and getting sick instantly. I'm just done with it. So I'm going to keep my masks. And I think that's where cons are probably going to go, and it makes sense. So I'd be fine with that. Because, like, here in the South, everyone's trying to just oh, it's not a thing. It's just, COVID's over. It's fine. So cons are following suit and being like, okay, we're going to open back up because we need business. But they're doing, hand sanitizer. Like, it's a rule at most of our cons where you have to have, like, a bottle of hand sanitizer. That's fine. I can deal with that. I could deal with the masks. That's fine. But most of the cons in the South are opening back up as normal. And most of the tables that I had in 2020 are starting to roll over. So I think those are going to be fine. Because cons are such a big thing, like, I think they're going to be fine. But also, virtual cons and virtual cons and concerts and stuff, those are starting to be a thing. I've never actually attended one, but they are a thing. So that if you don't want to go out and risk your health, that's fine. As far as COVID itself, I don't really think I'm professional enough to speak on that, because I'm not a doctor. I know it's an absolute hellhole here in Mississippi because no one follows any rules, and literally Starbucks had to lift their mask mandate for customers for our safety, because people would come in and just like get violent over it. So that's a whole other issue. If people would follow rules, we would be done with it. But that's all I'm gonna say. Don't cancel me, please.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's going to be interesting. As people know, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to a con because I think there's a lot more money to be made on the internet at this point, and I can get everything I want, from the internet at this point, and a lot of
The
companies.
thing is, I don't mean to interrupt you, but because of 2020, yes, people did get comfortable being on the internet. but now people are also desperate for human connection. So I think it's going to be like internet, but then everything gets released and it's going to have a hard shift because people are going to want to put their phones down. People are going to want to close their computers and meet real people.
So I don't think that's. I think half the country is that way, and I think the other half is really not doing that. I think that there's going to be a whole.
It's the introverts and the extroverts. That's the two sides. Introverts are just like, yeah, keep it on the internet.
I don't really know in which that it's going to be very interesting because I think a lot of people don't want to go back, and I don't want to go back, not because I don't like human interaction. I love human interaction. It's the idea that I've discovered a new business model. And so for me, it's just money, where if you're making money in a certain sector and that the human connection was a lot harder to do it, but doing it on the internet and providing an internet, service and marketing and ads and a variety of other things and actually making money with sponsorships, why would I want to go back to not having that? So I like human connections. I'm not anti-human connection. I'm not anti-bars opening up when things and cons opening up and anything like that, going to the movies and going to the movies on Sunday.
Yeah, if the internet's working for you, by all means, stay there. Like, that's absolutely fine. My whole thing is do what you want to do as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. More power to you. Like, if you want to stay on the internet, like, if that's working for you, that's great. That's absolutely wonderful.
So that's where I'm at. But I digress right there. So obviously, we covered a lot of stuff in 2 hours. A lot of stuff. These interviews go long. I'm mini Joe Rogan right now. I am mini Joe Rogan without the money. So that's where I'm at.
You take a lot less cracks at my kind of people, though. So I appreciate that.
Well, it doesn't serve a purpose, and in this interview, because we're actually talking about your book. This interview is not to be political; it's to have a conversation about comics, and that's why it has, and also just be rude to take shots that are unnecessary. If you came after me and started attacking me on a variety of stuff, I believe in mutually assured destruction.
Once a week, we should have just an absolute bang out of just how many insults we could put out at each other. Have it the censored Patreon special.
I don't think I would have a job to go back to if we did it on a Monday. So, having said that, obviously, where can people find you, support your work, pick up the book? Follow you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook pages. When you're out of Facebook jail. Okay.
I've been zucked. So, the easiest way to find me, I don't know if you can see my name on the screen or anything. I know I can see it. I don't know if you can. Just go coffeeallen.com. All my social media links, all my book links, my Kickstarter link is there. Everything is there. I have a whole website. I have a... Hang on. Let me do this. I do this. coffeeallen.com. Right here. You can do the hiring, you can do all the stuff. My Kickstarter is here. Just coffeeallen.com. And that's literally where you can find me. I have like a little area down here with all my social media links somewhere. Yeah, I got my YouTube, I got my Instagram, got my Patreon, all of it. Just coffeeallen.com and you're good to go.
Yeah, so obviously that's very important. I'm going to continue stating it. Obviously, the Kickstarter link is up above. It's an hourly link because apparently I have a feeling, and I can't prove it, but it's just my thought process, that if you put a Kickstarter link, they're going to disconnect me, and that didn't happen. So we're going to continue using hourly links for that very reason. But obviously, you can go back to Kickstarter, buy that link. There's 6 days left, so please go support that. And
6 days left on the last Kickstarter for Legend of the Erased. If you want custom mugs, custom t-shirts, custom hoodies, this is the last chance to get it. I'm done. I'm done doing it. From now on, it's just book, only book. You want a special cover? You want a special covers featuring your character? This is the last chance. Last chance.
Well, never say never, as in the wrestling world we call it. But I digress. I'm not going to push you on that because
I'm stubborn.
Otherwise, February, February, guys. But anyhow, what I've been saying, I'm going to keep on saying is you have to support indie, and what that means is backing people's projects. You know, that means backing Kickstarters, buying things off of people's shops, sharing it out there, following people on Twitter, Facebook pages, checking out people's YouTubes, checking out their email lists, obviously going to their websites, throwing $1 or throwing $100. Every little bit helps. And every little bit helps. If you like a project, it makes a difference. And also, it's not enough anymore just to follow somebody on Twitter or back their Kickstarter. Share out what they are doing and actually share that you back the project. And Kickstarter makes it very easy to do that. So please go and do that because it goes a long way and algorithms are not what they used to be. And there are projects that have not come across my desk until the last 5 days. And I'm friends with these people and I'm in all these groups that these, people and their projects are in. And it is shocking. So obviously, please go and do that and share it out because it goes a long way. Also, I'm an indie content creator. Obviously, I have a sponsor, which really helps to make this podcast work. But I appreciate all support. I appreciate likes, shares, comments. I appreciate people checking it out, as well as I have Buy Me a Coffee, which is the link below the Kickstarter, a few clicks down. And so I appreciate all support there. I am letting everybody know that while my Kickstarter is not live, I do not know what is exactly going to happen with it. But once that Kickstarter launches, if it ever does, I'm going to go down that path. My ad costs on Buy Me a Coffee and my guest spot costs, guaranteed spots, are going to go up a tremendous amount more, and I am not going to be negotiable on my rate. So right now, I have about 12 spots open for sale, and they're relatively cheap. So check that out, and I guarantee you that if the Kickstarter launches, maybe January, I'm thinking, that is going to be at least $25 a live read, while it's $20 on the Kickstarter, and then it will remain at that number, and it will increase over time. So having said that, I'm going to give you the final word.
You can't put me on the spot like that. Yeah, support indie artists, and don't let Zuckerberg win over the algorithm. Share people's stuff, and if you want your character on a really cool cover, if you got a comic shop or have a stand at cons, $300, 50 books.
And on that note, I don't think I could have said it any better. So go buy that money, sell your Bitcoin, to go buy this thing, and you'll have some money left over, and you'll enjoy yourself, and you make a fortune on customized books. So on that note, I couldn't have said it any better myself, and I believe that is a wrap.
Thank you so much.